So today we'll be exploring learning from others, exploring non-Drupal applications. So that means that I'll be looking at some of the reasons behind the not invented here syndrome and the opposite, why people do it, what it causes, and we'll be looking at specific examples from other applications, mostly to understand why they do some particular small segment of their business the way they do it. In no way is it a judgment, this is good, this is bad. Drupal is really bad because it should do something this way or that way. It's just an observation which is really important if you do any kind of implementation of any kind of system, because you need to understand the reasons behind it all. So let's start with this. Hi everyone, my name is Ranko. I'm from East, from Croatia, in Zagreb. You can find me on Twitter. Yeah, I mostly ignore it, but every now and again I decide that I like Twitter, or on Google+, which I actually use a bit often, more often, sorry. And these are some of the web applications I used. I really like web applications as a concept. I've been doing it a long time now. And I just highlighted a couple of them. And when I listed them, I tried to include various applications that I not only installed, and clicked around a bit, but something that I actually used, tried to modify, to change, to improve, upgrade, connect with something else, so do some significant amount of work on them. Really quickly, from the top, this is your left. The SNITS forums is an ASP-based PHP BB, I'm guessing everybody knows. It's the most popular bulletin board out there. That's standalone, forums only. I forget the blue one. Above it is the Microsoft's Dynamics CRM, which is really interesting because it's a brand new Microsoft team in designing it with the logic. It's actually quite Drupalish if you take a look at it with the entity building fields. And it's really flexible especially for site builders in the way that Drupal is approachable. Everybody knows WordPress, I'm guessing. SharePoint, I had to do with it. And the community server is a .NET application that's, I think, no longer available because they've gone the enterprise route. It's one of the pre-Facebook attempts to create a differently logicked Drupal. So you had forums, galleries, blogs, and various other modules that were separated but kind of integrated. They really had some nice solutions before they went away, and they were dual license. There was a community open source version that might be floating around there, and then there was the enterprise version. Before we get into the practical part, we are going to start with a little psychology. You can see this. Okay, so this is from something of that ilk. It's a joke on something that I'm going to introduce now. It's called cognitive dissonance. So there are some states that prevent us from looking at other work that are really not good in this context that I am talking about today. So cognitive bias, in short, is a pattern of deviation in judgment, or basically it's something in the way that our brain works that tells us to do it in a specific way. We'll have a couple of more advancements. Everybody suffers from them. They're normal. They enable us to function from day to day, be it from walking, interacting with your friends and family and neighbors, or when you sit down at the computer and do your job, or when you talk to your clients. So the most important one, I think, for today is illusory superiority. Basically, it says that when I compare myself with any one of you, am better at the task than you are. The most fun study that they did to look into this condition was basically asking people to rate themselves in their skill to drive. So is there anybody here who's not a driver? Okay, you don't need to answer the next question. If you look at the person sitting next to you, do you think that you drive better than they do? Come on, be honest. What was found is that above 50% depends on the country, because all of these are very culturally dependent, but 60, 65+% of people who answered the question like that said, yeah, I do. And it's the same in programming, right? You get a task, I'll do it better than the next guy because I get it. And it's not a bad condition, don't get me wrong. It's just something that fuels your self-confidence. Of course, it can twist and be bad, and the reality is you're not Neo, you're a guy doing his job. The odds are that you're doing it really well, but you really do not see shiny green patterned walls around you, I'm hoping. The next, and this one is interesting because you can see it relate to many uncomfortable instances on the internet or in real life. So when you find somebody ranting about this has been popular recently against PHP or whatever, JavaScript or HTML or IE7, it's because they think that they know better than somebody else. And it leads to bad things if it's not kept into check. You need to try and be aware of it so you can use it to your advantage. Its close friend is the other one. I've heard it mentioned a couple of times in the sessions in the last 2 days. It's called functional fixedness. The most famous quote is the first one. It's tempting if you have a hammer that everything else is a nail. If you watched Dr. House, you have surely heard it. He likes to say, if I send you to an oncologist, he's going to find cancer. It doesn't matter if you have a common cold, an oncologist sees what he's specialized in because it's the root of the deep specialization effect. It basically limits you into using an object for the purpose only. So there was a story on the internet about plastic bottles that were used in the third world, not to fill them up with fluids and drink them later on, but to use them as light bulbs in crowded condensed spaces. The most famous experiment behind this is the candle problem, which basically the person administering the test gives you a box of Tic Tacs, they give you a candle, they give you a box of matches. This is a firelighter, but same thing. And they give you a task. The task is you need to put the candle, attach it to a wall, and then light it. It must not drip on the floor. The most common solution is that it drips on the floor because people start using the thumbtacks to nail the candle, and they do really strange things. They try to manipulate the candle in a way so it wouldn't drip. And the most common solution is when you step outside, look at the tools that you actually have, and realize that the box itself is a tool. So you take the 2 thumbtacks, nail it to the wall, and stick the candle on the box. Problem solved. It's just lateral thinking that's needed. In the same line of reasoning, I'm going to switch to philosophy for a second. Somebody mentioned the first quote. It's basically standing on the shoulders of giants, which is always used to imply that we should strive to do better than the generation before us. To take a look in programming, it's usually take something that's really valuable and then build upon it so that you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Another one that's used for a similar situation, and it's first recorded in 1159 by John of Salisbury. So I think they knew about open source a few centuries ago. And of course, the last one is the good artist copy, great artist steal. The same line of reasoning, where he is trying to say, of course, he's a painter. He cannot take another painter's painting and say, huh, signature, this is mine, but that you need to look at the others for inspiration, for ideas, for techniques, for everything that's actually your tool set, because this computer, the keyboard, they're only a part of my tool set, as paintbrushes were for Pablo Picasso. And on the other hand, within the philosophical realm is the famous quote of Plato's of Plato's cave. The story basically goes like this. There is a group of people, they're chained in a cave. There's a fire behind them, and they grew up, and the only thing that they have ever seen in their life are their own shadows. So that's the only thing that they know. And one of them manages to escape to the outer world. He sees the sun, he's all blinded, he doesn't know what the sun is, it's completely unrealistic to him. He goes on and he explores the world, and in his explorations he adapts, he sees things as they are. And then in the third part of the story he goes back to the tribe, and the whole philosophical debate is, well, how is his tribe going to take him in? Will they think that he is mad? I mean, the sun cannot be yellow, right? Everything we know is shadows that are black, they dance on the wall of the cave. Will they kill him? He's bringing change that they cannot grasp, that they cannot contain. So, or will they, follow him to freedom, which, because these are Greek guys, is never the case. They had a taste for tragedy, and tragedy usually means blood and bloody murder. There is no actual answer to this quandary. And that's basically what not invented here syndrome is, right? It's a term that uses I wrote philosophy or attitude, something that is preventing you from either using something or even looking at it. So in Drupal's most famous case, it's jQuery, right? If the Drupal community at large suffered from it, we wouldn't have the jQuery framework inside, and then most likely somebody else would need to have written a substitute. And I think that's a rather large task for a rather small community. And this way you get two communities. It's the same syndrome that's very successfully being flipped around in our community, and that brought us elements from Symfony and everything else that you've been hearing about since they announced all of the changes for Drupal 8. Of course, there are realistic problems with that. So I mentioned jQuery. That has been great. In fact, if you look at the dates between the inclusion of jQuery, you'll see that it's, I think, 3 months between the 1.0 of jQuery and the date it's been included in Drupal core. So unlike, I don't know, Fields API, which took a bit longer, and other nice things that we like to use in Drupal, which really needed to grow. I mean, views. Views took how many years? The other thing is the Drupal community at one point included simple test, which was not such a great, I don't want to say idea, but it wasn't such a great experience. So the risks of taking something external and making it a part of you are that you are going to need to change it, and then you don't get the benefit of it being developed or invented upon by the outside force, in this case, another community. So simple test was taken in. There were quite a few patches for it, changes on it to make it work with Drupal core, and so on. There are some links that explain into it, but it's really not important to this sorry, part. And the main point, as you might have been noticing, is it's not all about code, right? In the open source communities, you'll often hear that just look at the open source code. So you can fairly easily learn from it, but it's not really all that easy all the time, right? So if you want to get a piece of functionality from, in most cases, I'd use Drupal as an example, from any huge code base, LibreOffice, right? Those are megabytes and megabytes of files, and how the hell are you going to go through them all? So in some instances, you'll need to take a different approach. And for ideas, it's really hard to block you. It's really hard to block you from seeing what something actually does if you have any kind of access to it. So you are in a distinctly unfair advantage towards the closed source communities, because you can take a look and see how they do it, even without looking at the specific code, because in most instances that might not even be relevant to you. So, the most important things that I think that you can pick up from anything else is the goal. So the goal defines what we want to have in the end. If we want to have a truck, we need to know what the truck is, so you need to define them. I think most of you were in the same session as me a minute ago in the responsive team, so SMART goals, they need to be definable, blah, blah, blah. And maybe even more importantly, the process behind it. So the process is the thing that tells you how we get to the goal, which steps we need to take. If those steps are complicated, we break them down into smaller steps. Some things are fairly easy. You want to publish a blog post. You're looking at that kind of an example. Well, it's mostly post. There is no big process behind it. But maybe if you're doing content, you'll have a draft, a second draft. You'll have somebody who needs to go over it. You'll need somebody to approve it until it's finally published. So, and you can actually see that, especially if you're in the position to get a nice look behind the scenes by the steps, right? So if you click on the menu button, you'll see that you have the options to publish this or post it as a draft or send it to moderation. So all of these things, these simple labels, tell you what the application allows you to do and is most likely implying what it wants you to do, how it wants things done. It gets a bit more complicated with business applications, and again, we'll see that in the examples. And of course, I almost skipped it, context. So the saying goes that content is the king, but context is God. And I really think that this last part is important. Context is God. It really matters because the context is what defines of where the users are, how they work. As the guy in the responsive session just mentioned, if you have a lot of users from Asia and Japan, odds are that you are not going to dodge the bullet of IE7. That's context. So it's really important to understand it, and most often, context will drag along historical facts after it. It's something that everybody is going to tell you to try and avoid, because the historical facts are either complicated or stupid. We had that button on the left side of the screen, why is it at the bottom right now? And then you need to either explain the new process or change, and it's additional effort. So context for any kind of analysis, for any kind of understanding is maybe even the most important thing that you're going to be using. Some things, when you're looking at other applications, are going to be obvious, some are not going to be obvious. So, as the man says, you do not simply walk into Mordor. There needs to be a set of 3 books before we get there. And it's really important because some things are not obvious. The slide where I showed you the logos of the web applications, I tried to make it look like this. I clicked on the element thingy. I'm not a big Impress user. I'm not a big PowerPoint user. And I had an option, and it told me, okay, background is going to be white. If I exit it and show it, it's going to look literally like this because, you know, screenshots. And then when I was clicking through it, it didn't. I have no idea why. I am a user. I was an average user. I didn't even bother Googling. And that's the result we get, right? One thing is broken. My expectations were broken. The promise of the application was broken. And that's something that needs to be minded when you're looking into stuff. The first example that I'm going to use today is the CSS Box Model. I see the front-end people are here. They're going to love this. So this is a box. The picture of the box is by pure accident by a Drupalista as well. She has written a great book on Drupal front-end, and the second edition is in the works, allegedly. You should check her out, definitely, on Twitter and on the interwebs. So what's the CSS box model? It's what defines, the containers where your stuff lies. And this is the graphical representation of the box model. The top one is the standard one. The bottom one is the mostly accursed Internet Explorer box model. And this is a nice difference between the officially sanctioned, well, sanctioned is a harsh word, between the officially proposed solution and the solution that some team decided to implement. The top one is basically saying that the books that are in the box are the width of the box, and the fact that I have half a meter between the box itself and the last book I placed doesn't matter. And when the IE team way back when was implementing these properties, they said, if this is my box, if this is my box, the width of the box will be my box, not what's inside of it. So they were going against the proposed standard, but they were shooting for the end user's expectations, and the end user in this case was the designer himself. This, of course, broke into many, many flame fests. It was really not entertaining. And all of a sudden, especially with responsive web, there is a set of design community who are saying that the box model as we have it today, which is the top one, is actually not as good as the bottom one, which tells you if the box is here, this is the width of the box, not what's inside, which really makes sense. But again, somebody was looking at it from a different angle, didn't include the goals, the expectations of all the groups that were involved in the needs of the box model itself. For the next example, I'm going to take a look at views. Anybody here does not use views? Thank you. And views are perfect as they are, which is a really great tool for a site builder or a really powerful user to build a page, a box, some sort of content. You can add relationships, blah, blah, blah. Everybody knows what views does. And it's obviously directed towards those kind of users. And this is a screenshot from Microsoft CRM, which I mentioned, which is basically views, right? It allows you to, this one actually allows you to search, but that's irrelevant. It allows you to build views, right? I have this section here that tells me how I want to filter them, and there's a button somewhere that says edit columns, which basically gives me a screen which says, give me a title, give me the body, give me the description, the blah, the blah, the blah. Except this one's completely turned around, and you are directing it towards the power user. Not the administrator, not the IT guy, not the whoever, but the power user who works within the CRM context. So the contexts are completely different. One was the views are built with the idea of web content management. This is for customers. And when you're doing a back office application, one of the biggest concerns you have is that the back office users have the best experience they can have, so that they can perform custom reports really quickly, so that they can get the business data they need really quickly. And nobody will see it, right? If the guy builds a view and the columns are all squished together, he doesn't care because he's going to take them to Excel or any spreadsheet application and he's going to work with them there. One other thing that's really interesting about this particular screenshot is the width. This is a full window. You can see the Chrome has been stripped away, which has been done because it's a pop-up. So once you dismiss it, your changes are gone, which is really good for older crowd. And they fixed it design-wise, they fixed the width because, again, the target audience were the power users themselves and the back office users. So they tried to implement the old desktop application feeling, which you don't get with fancy responsiveness. That freaks people out because stuff changes, right? If the button is in the top left corner, it needs to be there because you're an back office user. And that's the logic that they were trying to recreate when building a web application that serves as something that's not been traditionally done on the web. Sorry. This is the WordPress example, which is a bit ahead. So that's basically what I was saying. So we can skip to the WordPress galleries. I don't know if anybody used WordPress. I'm guessing at least you checked it out. WordPress is famous for having a very user-centric approach. Everything that you do in the backend is as simple as it can be. It should be as pretty as it can be because that's the first interface that you get with an application. And it's fairly simple. You drag and drop images, push a button, they get up, and then you get a gallery in your blog post in your page, and it literally looks like that. You don't see the images in the editor, you see the block that says, okay, this is the gallery. Okay, sorry, got mixed up somehow. So, they target content creators, which is okay. But there are problems that causes for other groups of people that they didn't consider. And when you're looking into your applications, you want to consider. So the examples are that the images that the gallery insert will be placed with an absolute path. So if that changes and you don't update your post, it's never going to get updated. There is no system telling you that image 1 was used in blog posts A, B, and C. So once you start doing migrations, it's all kind of fun. And still the main goal of the process is met because they allow the user, the content creator, to really quickly and visually create what they need because they do not think ahead. We are going to need to migrate to a different system. We are going to need to migrate to a newer version of the system. And once you get some business people who want to see how often an image has been clicked or where it's been used, you can't get that because, I mean, you can, but it's really difficult. You need to go into the database backend to start ripping that content out. And by content, I mean, in this case, the business intelligence. Suicide Linux is a really funny example. I don't know if has anybody heard of it. It's a small bash shell modification, which basically does the command rmrf/, which translates to remove all, do it recursively, force, start from root. Basically, it wipes your whole installation to nothing, and it does it anytime you do a mistake. So you do a DURSH, enter, and you watch your system melt away. It's hugely fun. There's a clip on YouTube of a guy doing it. I like the destructive forces, so I ran it once myself. It's a beautiful thing to watch. It's a very anticlimactic as well because I don't know about you, but I'm accustomed to Hollywood movies, so I expected it to melt away literally. It's like, just some stuff just disappears, and at one point you can close the terminal and it can't reappear, but the session stays if you don't close it. But it's an exercise in stupid fun, but it's also very good because the goal of it was to teach people to be precise, to watch what they do. The process was really simple in this case, and the context in this case was obviously fun, but the goal was the most important. So when looking at it, you just need to see the goal. And please trust me on this. I used Suicide Linux. I tried to use it, for reals, just to see how long I could. It didn't take me long to delete everything. I was really thankful that by then I used a virtual machine, not a real machine. But again, the last example is my example. I literally woke up one morning, went over to my desk, had myself a cup of coffee, and I went to do an upgrade and managed to delete the users table, everything. And then, of course, I ran backup because that's what you do after you do an upgrade. So that was a really nice lesson in quite a few areas of my life. Hey, use backups. Mind what you do, mind what you type, and do backups before you do anything else. Small things are big as well. So this one is a completely ripped out example. This is just a screenshot. I don't know what that is, but it's an application that's basically showing you how a relationship module looks in another application. So it's a modal window that pops up. You don't get the two boxes that we have in Drupal where you switch, but it's again designed for some business cases where you might want to allow users to filter additionally on their data. So again, the goal here is purely productivity for people, especially for people who do a lot of commerce stuff. So they need to create a node and relate it to 5 products, and you have like 10,000 products in your commerce database. It's really hard to filter it out. If you didn't input them in by hand just a few minutes ago, if they automatically get into the system, one of the boxes allows you to switch the predefined view that's going to show up, so you can create the most recent products that were added to the system. Okay, show me. Or the user can define their own displays of the data they want to add to that relationship field. And this one is really great. I don't know if you worked with SAP. With SAP, I'm a pure user. I have the GUI interface. I click around, and I hate it. I hate it mostly because I don't understand it, and because it has a lot of historical baggage. So SAP is an ERP system that stands for Enterprise Resource ERP Planning, not management. And it does that in a huge way. So there are a lot of transactions that go on behind once you click submit to any form, when you add new data, when you try to pull data, and it really shows in the interface and in the way it works. And it's so old, in fact. This is not verified information, but a colleague of mine who's an SAP consultant told me they actually have a print server written exclusively for SAP within SAP. Because way back when SAP was starting, they couldn't rely on the operating system to reliably provide print services. And since this is an ERP system and they like to print invoices so they can send them to customers and get shiny money, they needed to be 100% sure that the invoice is going to end up on the other side of the printer. From UX and UI, it's a complete mess, again, for many, many historical reasons. One of which is because the SAP is driven by the development team, so they do the coding, and the end users come last, or if ever. So you have really strange interactions. I don't know about this particular screen, but on these tabs, once you click on a tab within your main form, it can change everything. And it's not really obvious how you get back. And the main goal that SAP does is stability. Okay, that's the only thing that it cares about. The processes behind it are uncatchable by just looking at the way it's going to inform you about stuff, how you're going to enter data. And the main thing it provides people is security, and that's why everybody uses it today. If you start something in SAP, you are as certain as you can be that the full set of transaction logics, and that's in some instances huge transaction logics that run for hours and hours and hours and hours and blah, 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 are going to be executed correctly. And then you get end users who don't care about user interface. They grow accustomed to it. They suffer from Stockholm syndrome, I don't know, because they stand there and, you know, it's just like that. It's SAP. And if you never worked with it, it's really hard to grasp the strangeness of the system. The top left corner, you see a small text box. You can't see my mouse, sorry. That's the place where you enter commands. Okay, so this is a tool for back office workers, administrative workers, normal human beings, and you enter ZAP_01, the transaction number, because that's easier for the machine to interpret as a command, and then it takes you somewhere to do your work. In normal systems, you would say new post, new commerce item, new customer, and here you have the code logic. And Office applications. Office applications are the underdog of the whole story. Everybody uses them. Those are the spreadsheets, the word processors that we use, the mail clients that hold very segmented pieces of data. And Drupal actually does some work of that sort. So everybody knows about Drupal Commerce, the e-commerce front, which is just the front. You can fairly easily plug it in to any other system to provide it with a feed. You can connect it to the product management databases, so you don't need to actually type in anything. You just select from a catalog. I'm going to be storing in my e-store, I don't know, white bread, black bread from this standardized customer who has his products in a third-party database, and I just get all the details, the weights, the volumes, the photographs. It's a very useful situation, especially in enterprise environments. The support system is something that I'm guessing everybody likes. You know, the ticketing system where customers come to complain. Red Hat and CRM Core, again, they have nothing to do with web content. They just care about people, organizations, how they relate to you, what you did with them. Did you call them? Did you email them? So activity management. And the last one I noted is the Smith API. So that's the content management. Does anybody know? It's something interoperability standards towards document management systems like Documentum, Alfresco, SharePoint, Nuxeo. There's quite a few of them. And it's a standardization of the document management platform. And actually, if you Google it a bit or look for it on the Drupal project page, you'll see that there is a module for that as well for Drupal, so you can connect them as an external source. And all of these applications actually care about, as I mentioned, a specific set of data, and they're completely underused, but quite often you'll see situations where people do processes in them. So in the case of e-commerce, you'll get a customer who walks into your web store, clicks around, buys something, and if you're that kind of a store, they can call you up and say, we need an invoice for another product, and they didn't click this time. And it's very useful if you have an instance of, if you can afford it especially, of building the line of business applications that pull data into those word processing or even spreadsheets for data analysis. So at one point, we tried the demo and built a working sample where you could have a Word template that pulled data from your e-commerce about the customer. So you just fill in the products, and they're minimizing the margin for error because everything is pulled in. The address where you're shipping, whom you're billing it to, and what the products are that you're going to be shipping to them. Oh. Again, this we covered. And the last bit that I forgot to mention is the mail client integration, which is, again, really useful for CRMs and support modules. Again, because they allow you to take the data you have in your content management system into the native environment of the person using it. So the support module is great, but it makes you go back to Drupal. I don't know if anybody used Zendesk for ticketing. They have this area really well covered, where everything is done with the email integration. They send you an email, you reply, but sometimes the process breaks and you get the crucial information in your email and you want to push it to your content management system so you have the full list of tracking so that the business owners are happy because you're using it, and the analytics guy is happy because they can see how many interactions you have, and all of these things have actual value. It's rather small if you think about it, on email by email, but it allows you to do response times, it allows you to do analytics on the profitability of the client. If the support is being swamped by them, you'll know. And again, the integration of the two allows the end user, who's the one who needs to do stuff like that, to actually go into it. And there are nice examples of mail client integrations. I think that there are demos for vTiger CRM. They do it, so they show you how they push content to web content management, so it's spread around. I don't have it here. The Visual Studio suite of Visual Studio's Git version has a very similar logic, where the developer guy is in IDE and then they see their tasks there, but there is an interconnection with Excel and Microsoft's project, so that the project management can go and look at the data in their native environments. And that's, again, looking into the goals and contexts of the various people that are going to be surfacing when you're working on a project or when you are working within your own business environment. It's really easy to do it. All you need to do is sit down in front of an application, click around a bit, and try to understand it. It takes a bit of practice. There are quite a few demos that will either guide you through it. I don't like to watch video demonstrations because then somebody is taking me by the hand and guiding me how they want me to see it. I like to try and investigate the process for myself, because then it's easier for me to understand the logic of the person who was writing it, of the requirements that they did, and the processes behind it are quite often simple enough that you can grasp them without and grab some inspiration and ideas on how to solve your own problem, because you really don't need to reinvent the wheel. And virtualization, obviously. Not only does it allow you to try it from the bottom up, so from installation on, but also most of the closed source vendors will offer a demo box, so you can really take a nice sneak peek and then look at the logics behind them. There was a mention of hook something in Drupal. There are quite a few solutions out there in the space which implement the same logic with the registration of the module, and then you have to wait every individual one. In Drupal's case, that would be murder, because at one point you'd get 20 modules where you'd need to pick the order how the hooks are fired upon manually. But again, it's a different approach to the same problem. That's something that needs to be taken into consideration for every project, or when applicable. When going through these steps, when analyzing the competition, the other guys, the other products, you really need a plan. You just can't go and install it and then click around. You need to understand the logic of the application itself, what it is trying to get you to do. So if it's a publishing platform, you want to publish an article, create a gallery, do the standard things that your clients and that you do all the time, obviously. Some demo scenarios by the vendors are good. You can go through them. Again, just try to avoid the videos. Or what I really like to do is rebuild something that I've built before so I can see the differences in how we implemented it, how it's done on that particular item of software. Of course, try to mind the pitfalls of the cognitive bias because its function is to tell you that whatever you're looking for and you're not comfortable with is worse than what you know. And of course, try to expand yourself and always try to understand the context. Many of these applications have been here a while. They have the reasons why they do things in exactly the way they do them today. And, if all else fails, fake it till you make it. That's proven to be a good strategy. There's a really nice TED talk on it. And finally, I'd like to thank everybody, the organizing team, the sponsors who allowed us, and you guys for suffering through my ramblings. Okay. Any questions regarding all? Okay. Never good when you don't have questions. Well, not nice of me, I ran through it. That's because of some leg pain, but at least you guys get to enjoy the sunshine before. If you do have any questions, you can grab me up on any of the networks and I'll just drop you a line. And as I said, there are quite a few resources out there. If you want me to share them, I'll do it later on. Okay, thank you.